I called the guy. Sometimes you just get lucky. Okay, I'm Nick Nazza, and I think you know I'm the chair of the board. I'm going to call roll. I'm here, Mr. Nigro is here, Allison Walsh is here, Sarah is here, Alejandro is absent, Jasmine Akins is excused, as is Danielle Moldenbas. So we have a quorum. The next item on the agenda is the meeting minutes review of March 28th meeting. I would ask Elise to introduce the resolution to approve those minutes. Mr. Nigro?
Change the voting.
Sarah, second. Okay. Any discussion, additions or deletions, comments regarding minutes of the March 28th meeting? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous. Pass. We want to have some staff here that maybe people haven't all met. And we'd like to introduce those to the board members. Kevin, why don't you take over and introduce?
Yeah, sure. So we've got some new staff that have joined our organization. That will be some directly supporting the Albany County Pine Hills Land Authority and some partially supporting. But first and foremost, I'd like to introduce Joe Galea. Joe joins us as the top facility manager for the campus. Joe is working out of the campus, and Joe, you want to say a few words about your background?
Basically been in construction management about 25 years, from the area, born and raised, moved away back in 1999. COVID brought me back, super long story. Extensive superintendent on-site experience, renovations, ground up, the whole 9 yards, and happy to be a part of it, happy to be here. So that's short of it.
Great, thanks.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So just in the way of, you'll notice that our CFO, Amy Thompson, is not here. Amy must have been an evil person in her past life. She's down in Orlando, Florida with 10 and 20,000 cheerleaders at a cheerleading
Oh,
competition.
God, I've done that.
But in her place is the Alliance Controller, Mark Opalka, who's joined us. Mark, you want to give a few short words about your background?
Sure. Prior to this, I worked for BSC for 3.5 years. I primarily worked in public authorities. Did some for-profit corporations, but mostly public authorities, IDAs, economic development, LDCs. Prior to that, I worked for 10 years at Capitalize Albany. And prior to that, 14 years at Curtis Lumber.
Any relation to Chet?
I think he is a distant relative of my father. So, like a second cousin, maybe?
In addition to that, we've got Anne Marie. Where's Anne Marie? Oh, there you go. Anne Marie Rollins, who's joined us from the College of St. Rose staff. So Anne Marie, you want to just make a few brief words about your background?
Hi, welcome this morning. I started out in the hotel industry. I actually worked for the opening of the Albany Hilton as general cashier, and then worked my way up to comptroller. Then I had children and moved into the private industry. I worked for Ross Valve in Troy for 17 years as the everything, full charge bookkeeper. And then I went to realty management for 4 years in the tech park for United Group. And from there, I ended up at the College of St. Rose, and I was here for 15 years in advancement and then finance. So I'm happy to be here too. I love the campus, as so many people do, and the college itself and its heritage. So
It's wonderful to have somebody on board with the organizational history of the campus.
Thanks.
That's invaluable, so welcome aboard.
And lastly, but certainly not the least, we have an existing Alliance staff member who's been promoted to project manager for the campus. Corey Testo, as you all know, will be working directly for Joe on matters with the campus. And we'll get into the organization structure a little bit later, but those are our new staff. I didn't forget anybody, right? No, that's it.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. Thank you, Kevin. CFO report, Mark?
Sure, thanks, Chair. So in front of you is the Q1 2025 report. Just go over the balance sheet real quick. Total assets as of Q1 were a little over 42 million. The majority of that is the purchase of the College of St. Rose campus, which you can see is a little over 35 million. Other assets, 6.6 million, which is primarily related to the bond financing, and there is a receivable for insurance that was due on the property, and cash is a little under 500,000 at 471,000. On the liability side, the accounts payable 1.2 million. That was primarily for the purchase of insurance for the property, the College of St. Rose property. We got deferred revenues of 1.1 million and a bond issuance of 40,470,000. Moving over to the profit and loss.
I have a question.
Sure.
What are the accounts receivable related to?
So the accounts receivable is, we have an agreement with the county to pay for the expenses. Primarily that is for the insurance, the reimbursement for the insurance.
Yeah, so as everybody recalls, the county chose not to bond out the operating expenses of the Alliance, of the authority for the campus, but to pay those in cash. So we have an agreement with the county, and Mark and Amy, submit invoices to the county as they come up, and in the interim, we carry those as receivables and payables.
So at the end of the day, upon property sale, will we have to pay that back?
Not per se. I mean, whatever we get back from the sale of the property goes to defease the bonds, and I guess if there's anything left over, that I don't know.
Yeah, the net proceeds go to pay off the bonds, that's what.
I'm saying if there's an excess, do we owe the county back for it?
Yeah, I think if there's an excess, that's also goes towards the bonds. So that we have the necessity to pay Joe if I'm not.
Yeah, no, and there's no formal reimbursement mechanism in the operations and maintenance agreement, John. It's really the focus on the money going back was upon sale of buildings by the authority. But the expectation is that we'll get close to what we owe the county, but I'm not sure if there's any, frankly, profit wasn't.
I'd offer a resolution to distribute that to the staff and board members. If there's no-
Well, we usually get the same Washington paperwork.
I wish.
Yeah, the mechanism is that we provide our expenses to the county on
And
their periodic basis, and they provide.
I'm just saying there was no obligation for us to pay them back.
There's not a written one. I'm sure the county might have a.
Hopefully we will. And one other thing that Dan McCoy mentioned that, we're working on is as we give up, sell buildings, there is that issue of, this was a college campus, and it's not easy to separate a lot of the utilities, the water, the sewer, the lawn mowing, security, and all those things. And we're gonna have to come up with a payment in lieu of formula for someone who bought the building, but they're gonna have to purchase those things from us. And that we're working on, we're talking about how we're gonna do that. Typically, it's done on some sort of square footage basis, but we may decide to do it differently. But that's something we're working on as we speak. All set?
Just go over to profit and loss real quick, or?
Yeah, keep right on going.
All right, so moving over to the profit and loss, the revenue for the Q1 was 613,000. 9,000 of it was interest. The remaining was reimbursement from Albany County, a help pay operating expenses. Operating expenses were a little over $1 million. The majority of that was bond issuance costs that need to be expensed. And then also insurance and legal fees and management fees. So with that, we had a deficit position of about $537,000 through Q1.
Any questions on the finances? Mark, thank you very much. That was a very good report. Kevin, CEO.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. We've got a couple of updates that I'd like to provide you. And again, I would like to apologize to our public and guests in advance. Many of these items are active real estate negotiations, so the only place we can discuss these is in executive session, which I'll ask the chairman to consider going into later in the meeting. But first and foremost, we have been working pretty diligently on how we staff the campus. In your package, you'll find a kind of an outline of the organizational structure, who reports to who and how things work on this campus. And also attached to that is an organizational chart. And if anybody has any, comments or questions or suggested edits to that, please feel free to let me know now or let me know after the fact. But this is kind of sort of, the resources that we see bringing to bear at various points along the way as the campus is developed and as needs emerge. Just briefly, of course, you are the legal entity responsible for this campus. I am your CEO. Tom Owens is our outside counsel. Sarah is executive assistant. And underneath that, we have our first line of management. Amy Thompson is our CFO. Joe Galea is director of facilities. And then helping us on the development side is a combination of Kevin Catalano, Clayton Besh, and of course, Dylan Tart. And there are people underneath them that go all the way down into the organization. But really, the important thing here is Joe is now responsible for all operations and physical issues on the campus. So, all phone calls will be directed to Joe. He had his first call, I think, was it last weekend, Joe?
Yeah, this past weekend into Monday into Tuesday, yes.
Right.
It's actually being repaired as we speak across the street.
One of our buildings across the street sprung a leak in the roof with all the heavy rains. That happens. And there's a good bit of water flowing in there, but it worked well. The security was alerted to it. I don't know, Joe, did it trigger an alarm, the water?
It did.
Yeah, because when I went into the building, there was an alarm going off.
It did, but no damage. I mean, it's in one of the older buildings, so from the attic
It's
to,
one of the houses right on Madison Avenue down the block across the
you can
street.
see when you go outside, you'll see the crane working on it as we're speaking, actually. From the attic to the top floor, so one of the ceilings in the third floor got damage to it. Went up, just put a Band-Aid on it in the meantime until we can get the roofers here to make a permanent fix, so.
But, this kind of thing is going to be a compromise. I mean, these are old buildings. John, did you have a question?
I have a question. What is the actual security with this building? What is it?
It's from what I've been told, I'm just so you know, my office is in with security. They are staffed 3 people, I believe, during the day and 4 at night, which includes one person monitoring, all the monitors actually physically sitting there watching everything. They are still aware and online with every time an access card is swiped. So when people do enter certain buildings, they are aware of it, whatever triggers it. I'm not that familiar with it, forgive me, it's just 2 weeks that I've been here. But they are still, they have, prior to our arrival, that the staff has been cut down, but they are here 24 hours a day. They work 3 shifts, and the majority of the higher end of the staff works at night as opposed to during the day. So
Let
they're
me-
constantly monitoring the buildings, going in and out of the
Let me
buildings.
interrupt you for 1 minute. I think what John was asking, there's an electronic monitoring system in all the buildings, so when water or unintended entrance, if an alarm goes off at the central security building, so that's what happened with the water. They got word, they called Joe and us and respond. So it worked the way it was supposed to.
And personnel 24/7.
Yeah.
Correct. Three different shifts, starting at midnight, 12 to 8, 8 to 4, 4 to 12.
Is it an agency or is it? internal?
It's still St. Rose folks, the same people that have been here so familiar. There's people there that have been here for over 20 years. They've told
And
me.
I think, Joe, we have two outside contractors to fill in.
Yeah,
for
they
some
they
vacancies.
did bring in 2 outside contractors that are working on the night shift with them.
And that's a
Assist at
security
night.
firm too, DBQ, I think it is.
Yeah, something to that effect.
DBQs.
And the college used that in the past too, so they're familiar with it.
You're welcome.
So any other questions on the organizational structure or the org chart? If you think of anything after the fact, just shoot me an email or let me know, but, this is, the document that we're gonna use to kind of make sure everybody knows what their responsibilities are on the campus. And we will backfill in as people are out. Let me turn over, for a brief kind of status of the comprehensive plan. There again, I apologize, there are some proprietary issues, some contract issues regarding the comprehensive plan that we'll go over in executive session as well. But Dylan, why don't you just give your general overview of the process and responses and so on?
Sure, do you said we'll do this before executive session, the process? Okay. Thank you, everybody. So as you're all aware, we've released an RFP, more comprehensive planning services that include things like engineering. The scope was actually pretty wide ranging, which required a team to apply, as opposed to just one individual or one firm. That being said, there are some firms here that can do a lot of the different work, whether it be design or engineering. So we had 11 qualified responses when they first came back. Through that process, the next piece was the internal review, or the review committee, that was made up of both county employees and people that work either on the board or for the organization itself. That included, planners, people like that who have this kind of understanding and have done this kind of work before. From there, that was reduced down to 4. And we are now in the process of having another group, which is made up of people involved in the board, who are going to be reviewing and doing interviews with the 3 that are still active currently.
And those interviews?
Are going to be next week.
So again, we've been working very closely with Chairman Mazza on this. As you heard from the county executive, there is a pretty healthy desire to get things moving quickly, not do this, not over-plan this, but, so we will be holding the 3 interviews on Monday. And if things go well, what I would recommend to the board, and we can discuss this a little bit more in executive session, is that we try to push to get a decision by the end of this month so that we can have our planning organization, whoever they may be, start June 1st and be done before the end of the year. That's the kind of time frame that I think is most likely to work for everything else. Now, you heard the county executive, and from some other things we've talked about in the past, there are going to be opportunities that pop up that that the board is going to have to deal with prior to the plan being done. And this is all in your, prerogative. You can entertain those proposals. You can push them off if you so desire until the plan is done. But I think you heard kind of loud and clear from the county executive that he's got a great interest in retiring as much of the debt as early on as he possibly can. So.
This is everybody else.
Right.
I mean, I think it's just not gonna talk specifics, but as we consider these firms, we need flexibility. So there's times when we're gonna have to leapfrog the planning process to have good opportunity. And I think that's just understood, Thank you.
So we'll talk again a little bit about some of the specifics in the executive session, but any questions on, just generally on that before we go on to the next item?
The only other thing I would say is that we have, it's a very detailed process, and, Allison, myself, Kevin, Dylan, staff, we spent a lot of time on this. It's very detailed. These reports are hundreds of pages, and I certainly would welcome any other board members who want to participate, but at this point, we're we're moving the process as quickly as we can, and you have to commit to the whole process and reading reports and all of that. So if anybody's from the board who's interested in participating needs to buttonhole me before I leave. But it's a commitment of time and not just sitting here. Preparation is very important.
And I believe, Dylan, we've given the board the access to the portal upon which all the plans reside.
Correct.
Yes, all reports have been, thank you, Dylan, you did a great job on that.
Is Sandy Mathis a consultant for us on
Yes,
this?
yes, he is. He's consultant for the Alliance, and he's being used in this particular area because he's got, Yeah.
And like I say, you want to get into more detail, we'll do that in executive session. Thank you, Dylan.
Sure. Yeah. Is that it, Mr. Chairman?
The next thing I believe is 5C.
Right. And with that, I'll turn this over to Tom and Joe, for a kind of brief overview on these issues. Tom, Joe?
Yes, sir. So before the board today, if they chose to do it, is a proposed policy for basically governing post-issuance of the bonds, procedures, and compliance policy. It's required and by the IRS, and with that, I'll turn over to Joe for a more detailed overview.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this particular policy, the policy that's described in 5C, is that the IRS has been concerned about governmental issuers closing on tax-exempt bonds, executing all the documents, putting them together in a nice closing transcript, and then putting that closing transcript on the shelf and forgetting all about it. So the idea here is to enact some generic standard, and that was the policy that we prepared for Tom and Kevin's review, that would provide ongoing, periodic review of the bond finance facility, namely the College of St. Rose campus. The idea being that you want your staff, and that's the purpose of the policy, to be sensitive to potential issues that may arise subsequent to the closing. And so what we've been working on is, with respect to this aspect of the agenda, is a set of generic, very standard policy, a very standard and generic policy that will give guidance to the staff and the staff's counsel with respect to ongoing issues. This is something that we prepared for our other governmental issuer clients. Our recommendation is that you move forward on this because it's standard, it's generic. I don't like using those terms, but that's how I would describe it. And frankly, the other motivating factor with respect to moving forward on this particular resolution today is that in connection with the closing of the bond, we have to file on your behalf an information return with the IRS called the 8038G. And there's a question on that form that asks whether you've adopted policies. And we always like to be able to check that box, yes. So our recommendation is that you consider the resolution, adopt the resolution. The resolution has language in it describing in general what this is all about, and that's described on page 11 of your materials, the last two whereas paragraphs there where we talk about the IRS has issued regulations requesting governmental issuers to do this. And then the next whereas paragraph talks about us as your bond counsel has prepared very generic, standard policy, draft of a policy, and that we're recommending you to move forward on it. And then more importantly, on page 12 of your materials, in section 4, it authorizes us, the firm, and also Tom to move forward with Kevin to finalize, to fine tune them, to make sure that they work administratively for the staff. And that way we can be in a position to check the box with respect to the IRS form. So this would be another policy that when finalized, after we review with Kevin, final form, we could be posted on your website and we'd be in a position to, like I said, check the box with respect to the IRS information.
Well, I think if the council is recommending this, then I think we should take a vote and support this.
The policy that you're asking us to adopt starts on page 10.
The resolution. That's the
Resolution. The resolution. And then the policy is on page 15. And are you asking us to adopt both?
Yeah, and again, it gives flexibility to, as Tom and I work through with Kevin, the actual terms of that policy, that makes sure that, there isn't any glitch in it, if you will, by way of administrative wrinkles. But again, it's something I would strongly recommend.
Thank you. I have a question. Are we looking at two resolutions or one?
Just one.
Just the one.
Just
The
the one
first one
right now.
includes
We'll
the,
talk about the next one next. Yes, sir.
okay. You wanna move that?
I move it.
Okay. Sarah, second. It's on the floor, any discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those present in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
G,
So the next one is, this is something that we've all been involved in, and this is a policy for us to deal with use requests, whether they come from the county, outside, or wherever. And Tom and Joe have spent some time putting this together, so I'll turn it over to them again.
Yeah, so bond counsel and myself have spent a fair amount of time over the past month. It's fairly, there are some technicalities that we need to be careful of with respect to private use, as we know, and taxes and financing perspective. So Joe and I have gone back and forth a few times. We think we have this now down to a fairly simple policy. It's not currently in form for the board to consider. So I thought we would bring this back at the next opportunity to be discussed. So there are a few wrinkles that bond counsel is continuing to look at from a tax perspective that need to be considered. So we're getting close. We were optimistic putting this on, and we're still not there yet.
okay.
So we can table that or whatever.
Okay, move the table. Move the table.
Yeah.
Okay. Allison, all those in favor? Aye. There's a question I want to go back. My mistake. I see that the resolution requires a roll call vote.
Okay. Yep.
I want to do that. I want to go back to the previous resolution. I am voting yes. Mr. Nigro?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
All others are not present. Thank you. Tom, again, temporary license agreement.
Yes, sir. So as the board is aware, we have previously authorized an occupancy agreement with Albany County for spaces principally within the event and activities. About 35,000 square feet split between office and storage space. They're currently occupying, yes, the counties that we've talked about, and pursuant to that occupancy agreement that this board passed in March, the end of March. This current resolution authorizes, if the board would choose to do so, to amend that agreement to add additional space under that occupancy agreement. So you'd still have the indemnification, the insurance, the temporary use, those same language would be in there. And as the county executive outlined in his thoughts, they have some, great ideas concerning these other spots. And I'll just briefly go through the way this is being amended, the board, and it's all in your package. But there's now going to be basically 5 buildings that the county would have the ability to access and use. And it's 420 Western, which is the event and activity athletic center, already. This just expands it to the entire space, the entire building. And to be fair to them, they've already had most of the space already. So trying to carve out something from a usable perspective that isn't being used by them is not really logical. So that's one. The second one is 392 Western Avenue. That's 996 Madison Avenue, which is also known as the Hearst Building. The third one is 392 Western Avenue. That's the library. 1000 Madison Avenue, and then 1006 Madison Avenue. So those 5 buildings would be added.
Those last 2 are the, I believe, the president's office, administrative building, and I believe Mastery Performing Arts is the.
Yes, exactly. So there's 2 parts to this resolution. First, as we've done in the past, this is an act on our part that, in my view, it's probably conservative, but I would like to evaluate this as a discretionary action under SECRA. So the staff and I have gone through and prepared, it's in your package, an EAF. We've considered this to be an unlisted action. These uses that are going to be in these facilities at this point are the same uses that have been here for decades. So we're not changing the character or the type of use. This is office or recreation or whatever these buildings were designed for. That's what these uses will be available for the county. So we did go through the environmental assessment form, took a hard look, and we did not evaluate that we did not conclude that there were any potentially significant impacts on the environment. So the first part of this resolution is a determination by this board that conclude that the action is this amendment to add this additional space. And also that we've taken a look pursuant to SECRA. We've evaluated this as an unlisted action, and there are no major impacts, no major environmental impacts due to this action. So we've prepared, and that's part of the resolution, a negative declaration under SECRA. So that's part of the resolution, is approving that negative declaration. And then the second part is the authorization for the CEO to move forward to amend the license agreement to include these other spaces. And in here, under the public authority law, there's certain requirements that we need to fulfill when we make property decisions one-on-one with another party as opposed to an RFP process. Again, we have a very special relationship with the county anyways, but that's still a requirement. So we satisfy this requirement. We describe the property, and that's on page 29 of your packet. That's in the resolution. We have the property appraised. Jackie County's here today. She appraised it for us. $12 for office space and $3 per square foot, for the storage space. An awful lot of this is really storage space. I mean, there is limited office space that you'll see in here, really. And in addition, we have parking spaces. I think, Dylan, is it 90 now total?
It's up to 90 now.
Yeah. So I think they started with 20, and then with this additional space, this additional office and storage space, there'd be 70 spaces, which we have, they're available. And they're appraised at $100 a month per space. So again, because of the unique relationship with the county and the way the county funds our operations, there's really no consideration being considered in this use agreement, simply because if we paid it, we would need to sort of roll it right back to the county to use for our expenses. So it's sort of, it's more paperwork than it's worth. But again, that's outlined, it's explicitly stated in the resolution. And there are no private parties, and no one else has made an offer for this temporary space, this being used on a temporary basis. And so finally, we conclude that we've considered all of the findings that I've just outlined, and we don't see another method to satisfy this purpose without entering into this occupancy agreement. Again, amending the occupancy agreement with the county. So with that, I'm going to be very quiet, and that's resolution two, the two parts, the environmental part, and then the authorization for Kevin to amend an existing occupancy agreement. That's it.
Do we have to have any reason to know what the uses are, or is it just occupancy?
So the users are gonna have to be, they have to comply with the law, they have to comply, so we do certainly restrict them to the uses that the zoning code allows and the city, the code allows, but that's the extent of it, John.
Insurance?
Yeah, and so we require, and I know Jeff's on the phone with us here today, so they have the same insurance broker, Gallagher, and they provide us with certificates of insurance, liability, automobile liability, they prove workers' comp, employer liability. So yes, they do, that's in the agreement, they provide certificates, they name us as additional insured, it's primary, non-contributory, from their perspective. So yes, they do provide us insurance and broad indemnification protection as well.
How are we managing the internal administration and make sure we have those?
Yeah, so you're looking at the internal administration right now. So Amy and I, with Greg Vandenberg of Gallagher, go to him and say, Greg, you've got to get us the certificates of insurance, and and it's worked. Yes, and again, we only have 2 occupancy agreements right now.
And
that is a great
moving forward,
question. Moving forward, we
administrative-
have a lot, and so that's something the staff will have to, be aware of.
This board can be reassured that you and Amy are managing that on a regular basis.
Yeah, we're 1 for 1 right now, 1 hour.
So again, back to security, will still be,
And Jeff, are you gonna say something? Go ahead.
I just want to say that, I think that the law department has a conversation with Greg Vandenberg on a weekly basis. And just so you know, I mean, Albany County established a policy when St. Rose was still the owner of the premises. So we established a $10 million policy as it relates to the premises of St. Rose. Ownership changed over to Albany County Pine Hills Land Authority. We met with them and have subsequently had several different conversations with them to ensure that all the certificates are available there for all of the uses that either Albany County employees, officers, or invitees may be using. The one thing I may add, and this kind of goes to future potential uses, is that Albany County isn't necessarily subject to land use controls of Albany County. I mean, the city of Albany, sorry.
so just back to security, although they will have a temporary occupancy, we continue to provide security for those buildings.
Part of probably what was included, right? In the square footage.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Are we including security and those types of things in the calculation?
I can't, well, the rent is 0.
All right.
So that's the answer, yes. But, I think I can talk better about that.
Well, it's not, maybe it's not relevant, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, 1 times 0 is still 0.
100 times 0 still. Okay, any questions for Mr. Woods? I would like to move the resolution. Right here. Allison, Sarah, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And hearing no no's, passed.
It's the worst real estate deal I ever voted for in my life.
So leave your wallet. At this point, is there any other business before we enter into executive session? Hearing none, move to go into executive session.
And the reasons would be to discuss the potential acquisition or disposition of real estate, publicity of which would substantially affect the value thereof. The second reason would be the potential appointment or retention of a corporation or individual. And third, an independent reason, they're each independent, would be to obtain advice from legal counsel. So those three.
Any discussion? All those
Mr.
in
Chairman?
favor? Yes.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna request that Tom Owens, Paul Goldman, and Jackie Conti remain in for our executive session regarding some of the real estate issues.
That's fine with those. Okay. All those in favor?